shows they're planning, like Section 31. You know, Section 31 is sort of the Black Ops section of the Star Trek world. They're an intelligence gathering organization that sort of operates in the shadows. So while Starfleet gets to sort of have these incredible values and this moral system and take the high road, Section 31 is kind of like the beautiful parasite, the Hydra of Starfleet. And they were very much a shadow organization in the 90s. It wasn't clear if they had a command structure. It wasn't clear if they were official members of Starfleet or if they were sort of their own militia. I love that ambiguity of Section 31 back in the 90s and the early 2000s, because it was like, these guys are really scary. They're like, how does this guy beam into my quarters, hijack the entire station security system? All of that kind of stuff. How does this person do that with an incredibly small team of really surgical experts that appear to be deeply amoral and willing to put the Federation's interests above all else, even if it means compromising entire civilizations to do it? So now they want to do a whole show about these guys. The Section 31 show. And on Disco, when we encounter Section 31, they're not so much a shadow organization. You see the black communicator, and Starfleet officers seem to know what that means. They're like, oh, you're with Section 31. I'm like, that's kind of weird, right? Your black ops, your SOCOM level operators don't seem to have any anonymity. They have infrastructure, right? Whereas in the past, it seemed like their infrastructure was piggybacked off of Starfleet. Like, if they needed something, it'd be like, well, I'm going to pose as the director of security, or the CNs, or whatever position.
All right. So is that like a worry for you that it's heading in that direction, that they're not so much a shadowy organization anymore?
That's kind of the worry with the Section 31 show. Of all the shows that you have out there, that one worries me the most, because if they're going to go through with it and they're going to turn Section 31 into like this not shadow organization that sort of does all of the dirty business that Starfleet needs out in the open, that was my problem with season 2 of Disco. Section 31 plays a huge role in it. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but they're out in the open. They're not operating so much in the shadows. They have a concrete agenda. They're not helping Starfleet with one of their agendas secretly. It's like we have our own thing going on here. But I'd be curious to get some thoughts on that. And if you don't know Section 31, again, I'm happy to give you any of the details. But
Yeah, I find it interesting, like this whole section thing. What was it, section 32 or 31?
31.
31, right? Yeah. No, like they're like it sounds actually very awesome, but the thing is, like I have the same concerns too. Like if they're suddenly pulling like a mirror on it and like going through the looking glass and doing looking glass and doing the reverse, like they were a shadowy organization, now they're in the open and they're not as dark anymore. So yeah, like for example, is Discovery, how would you describe the tone of that show? Is that light or dark?
I think you said it feels like the original, right? Except more modern. Sorry, I shouldn't have answered that. Go ahead.
Well, you're. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think it leaning more towards the darker side, but Section 31.
Would you say it's darker than Picard?
No, I think Picard probably even went to some darker places.
Yeah, that's what I got the feeling of that too. So yeah, it's interesting. I was just thought about it because like because if Discovery was kind of dark, then I guess it'd be kind of like they'll try and inject some more like light into the future shows, because if you get too dark, then it might will kind of repel viewers, because like, oh, I don't want to watch this depression stuff anymore. Like that's what I thought. Maybe they were trying to balance it out, or yeah, but obviously I was wrong. So but yeah.
Well, I think that the darkness is a little relative, and I don't mean to sort of be so metaphysical about Star Trek, but these shows are definitely darker than the ones that came before. So these modern shows definitely have darker themes. They touch on
You did have Deep Space Nine. That was dark, wasn't it?
Yeah. For at that moment, Deep Space Nine was cutting edge darkness. In fact, the Section 31 gets introduced in Deep Space Nine, and the fans rebelled. They were like, how could there be that? No one liked the idea that the utopia and that the sort of clean, pristine moral center of the Federation and Starfleet was built around this parasitic organization willing to do dirty work. No one liked that. They were like, no, there can't be a Section 31. And now we're rebelling again about the idea of an entire show dedicated to this aspect of Star Trek. Yeah. But Stanton, you could be right in that. I hear you coming from a place as a fan who's a little more casual, saying, well, that actually sounds pretty interesting to me, right? Like, it makes a lot of sense. But I think Star Trek fans who are as deep into it as myself and Wellibers usually have to get pushed into these places.
Yeah, seeing is believing.
Right.
Also,
for us, yeah.
Like with Discovery, where you said, no, not the Discovery, where you said Section 31 had this kind of like awesome power, this kind of technological power, where they suddenly took over the ship in some series, like in the old school series, or in one series, you said?
Well, I think, again, I'm trying to keep the spoilers down, but Section 31 plays a huge part in Disco Season 2. And I think what's important, without giving anything away, is that they go from being a shadow organization made up of a small group of specialists, people who you don't know who they really are. You don't know their real names. You don't know if they have a rank in Starfleet. You just know that they have a very specific set of skills to accomplish these sort of
unlimited resources.
Right, on very limited resources. And it seems like whatever resources they had, they hijacked from Starfleet the same way Hydra would hijack resources from S.H.I.E.L.D. Perfect parallel there. But when you see them in Disco, suddenly they have uniforms, they have communicators, they have their own base, and it's like.
But are they still technologically advanced? Like
they seem to be more advanced than the Federation from.
Yeah.
From
you can. If you want to take a look at it, there's a lot of anxiety within Star Trek in all those shows and movies and stuff about the Tal Shiar, the Romulan Secret Service, and the Federation Starfleet always seemed like a beacon of light in a dark universe where warmongering secret societies, warmongering empires are there. The Obsidian Order in Cardassian Union, and then all of a sudden, Starfleet or the Federation has a section, or Section 31, a secret service, maybe even darker than all those other orders, because they at least were known by name, and their existence was acknowledged, and the Federation just kept that from everyone, and that was a slap in the face for people who actually believed in the utopian society Star Trek had portrayed until that moment. So it was a big deal, and with Section 31 coming so out in the open in Disco Season 2, mind you, like Lord Deathman said, 10 years before the original series is taking place, it doesn't really make sense.
It doesn't. But at least we hope we're generating some excitement for you guys to check this out, when it does come on. So if they go into production with it soon.
And to come back to Biz's question, I think the lighter part of modern Trek will be in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Without spoilers, another part of Discovery Season 2 has something to do with the USS Enterprise, and Star Trek Strange New Worlds seems to be a spin-off of that part of Discovery Season 2. So, and I have a feeling that will be a little bit more like old style Trek.
Okay. Well, again, going back to Section 31, I'm just really interested now.
You're intrigued.
You said that there was a difference between the old one and the new version, like in Discovery. Maybe I guess that suggests that they're both in the same universe, like they're actually the same people, right?
I'm going to piggyback on that just real quick, and that's the same question. I was wondering the same thing, and is it more of a stylistic choice from one group of creators to another, or is it a conscious choice that has to do with a progression of those characters, or is it?
It may be a little of both, I think. It could be a bit of a progression in which you're trying to take what was a smaller organization. It doesn't make sense, though, in that by the time you get to the 24th century, Section 31 is a smaller organization, but when they first started, it seems like right as the Federation became a thing in the galaxy, they had huge infrastructure and tons of men and weapons and ships and all of that kind of stuff, only to become a smaller organization like centuries later. Now, depending on
nobody even heard of them. I'm sorry, Lord Lieutenant, but nobody had even heard of Section 31 at that moment. They showed up very late in Star Trek Deep Space Nine in that show. I think season 5 somewhere. So that's basically 12 seasons of Star Trek where they were not mentioned, and you have the original series where they were not mentioned. You have 10 movies where they were not mentioned, and all of a sudden that guy shows up and says Section 31 is a thing, and it's very secretive. It seems very small. It seems very powerful, and now you all of a sudden have a show is taking place before all that, where Section 31 is huge. So it doesn't add up. So they need to explain that somehow in a certain way in the coming seasons. Otherwise, it is really breaking. There's the canon gets broken up.
So what, have they appeared between Discovery and Deep Space Nine?
They have. They primarily have been on a show called Deep Space Nine, and then another one called Enterprise. And the way they've operated is usually you get one Section 31 operative. They're aggressive recruiters, and what they do is they recruit Starfleet officers. So they approach you, they isolate you, They approach you as a Starfleet officer because they profile you. They're kind of like, this Starfleet officer, where they are in their career, we know that they would be an excellent operative for Section 31. So you have Starfleet officers moving in and out of Section 31, joining this group for special operations, and then coming back to their normal Starfleet duties. And,
okay.
Star Trek canon has tried to show the conflict in that. Like, you're
kind of like a secondment or something.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Like a secondment? Like it's just like what you were saying. They just well,
you could call it an elaborate con, but I think they function as
no.
handlers.
I think you misheard me. I'm just saying like it's basically saying like they pick out like Starfleet officers and then they just do maybe a certain job or do a certain like maybe a year and then they let him go or something.
Yeah, usually Section 31 assignments last for a few days, and you're meant to do a very specific thing. So you're one person in a huge machine that Section 31 is operating across the fleet, and your job might be to make sure that your captain does not get a certain subspace communication at a critical moment, because that's going to keep him information blind. The TV show goes on for 7 seasons.
Hydra, the TV show.
Are we ready to move on to the